So I'm Hannah Bowler, I'm editor at the Subthread, and I'm joined by Wayne Deakin, who is founder of Studio Deakin, and Jeff Bowerman, who's ECD at Dept. And sorry guys, but I didn't prep any lovely, glowing career blurbs like Alex did for you guys.
Yeah. I noticed, I thought, I haven't written anything for you.
No, I mean, I didn't do it, I was lazy. So you guys can maybe do it yourselves? Yeah? Jeff? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm Jeff. Yes, I'm ECD at Dept. Probably not heard of us, but we're a 4,000 strong agency globally. I think about 750 in the UK. Dutch born and all over the globe now. Digital heritage, and we are like 50-50 marketing and technology. So 50% of the team and 50% of the revenue and clients is creative and media and design and branding and stuff like that. And then the other 50% is engineering, experience, platform, data, and all that sort of stuff. I'm a designer by trade, I guess. 25 years working in various different shaped agencies. So done a bit of everything from coding to creative, much more now in just leading a team of about 85 people who do the work now, so I'm well off the tools, very rusty, but still trying to keep relevant. But very nice to you all.
You're on your homecoming then for Dept at the Dutch pub. Wayne?
Yeah, speaking about rusty, Wayne Deakin, I have a studio called Studio Deakin that's like pretty new, about 6 months old. Before that, I was global whatever for Wolf Hollands. So looking after their global design and experience across London, New York, San Francisco, and LA. And we worked with loads of famous brands. And then ECD at AKQA and Huge and some other agencies. So 1,000 years old. Yeah. That's about it, I think. Done some famous shit that people remember occasionally.
To be fair, I think you guys did it better than I could do it, so thank you both. The key point of this session, I think, is to really understand how you shift from sort of hype cycles around new trends, new tools, new approaches to work, to sort of building a sort of structure and a creative team that can really be doing good work rather than just being caught up in constant cycles. My first question is all around sort of the conversation between clients and you guys and those sort of pitch meetings. And actually a gentleman asked this question very well in the Q&A of the last session. I kind of want to understand like who is pushing new innovation and new approaches. Is it you guys or is it the clients? Are they coming to you with, this is what we want and we're going to give you this, this and this? Or are you guys trying to drive them to be more innovative and think outside the box? Who's kind of chicken and egg in this way?
Yeah, it's a super good question and really difficult. So it depends on the culture of the business you're working with. You know, I've worked with Google and Uber and people like that, and even like fintech companies. And I think if you're a product first business, you understand innovation, prototyping, and that sort of mindset. I think some of the more traditional brands, it's harder for them to engage because there's more silos, and silos stop innovation. And I think if you have a strong internal leader within a brand, most of my clients are like C-suite level, basically. And I think most of my job is like, it might be a head of design, chief design officer, or a head of product or whatever, is helping them sort of get across the silos to get innovation out. And innovation is a mindset as opposed to a process, in my mind. So I think it's about creating the mindset within the organization and business. So I don't think it's necessarily agencies, because there are a lot of agencies that are saying, yeah, we do innovation, and sometimes it's just pretend innovation to win awards. Not real innovation, can I say that? Or I would be shot. And other times I think innovation isn't shiny and new and wins awards, but it's long-term and it creates growth. So there's many different I've just gone off on a tangent, sorry. But like there's many types of innovation. But I think innovation comes from both sides.
You can go off on tangents, that's what we're
Okay,
here
thank
for.
you. Yeah.
Jeff, do you ever feel like you're pushing innovation to win awards? Or
Well, yeah, selfishly. Yeah, I've always had this theory about agency life is unless a client is asking for it, you're not going to do it. Like, if you're not going to cut costs unless a client wants to cut costs. You're not going to do a type of work unless a client wants it.
But do you guys ever?
Well,
want it?
we are an innovation agency. Our whole new positioning this year actually is called Growth Invention, which is essentially how do you grow clients by inventing new ways to build their brand, right? So whether that's marketing or technology. So in theory, yes, clients have come to us with that. They want to tick a box that they are innovating and doing the next thing. But the reality is in the day-to-day, because I think a lot of the people we speak to aren't the C-suite. They are, I guess, one level down. They've got targets to hit and work to get out. So the innovation, unless they're explicitly asking for it, we are trying to push, and it's sometimes you're pushing against a bit of, against the tide a little bit at times. And yeah, I mean, I get excited about innovative work, so I want to push that, but I'm not going to push it to the extreme of that's not going to deliver what the client needs right now. When sometimes the longer term need for that innovation. So yes, there's always a constant tension, and also being in the creative side of the business I'm in, I like to think I'm slightly the counterbalance. So there's people who are going to be putting tech and innovation as the solution to every business problem. There's sometimes quite a traditional creative one, quite like a buzz-inducing, creative, conceptual idea that's not necessarily going to have innovation. It's going to be a lovely piece of writing or a beautiful piece of film. So yeah, there's not one size fits all, certainly.
I think that's a really good point, mate, because I think innovation, if you say innovation, instantly your mind goes to technology, right? And actually it's been hijacked by technology. Yeah, sure, technology is innovation, but like having a diverse workforce is innovation. Having a different work culture is innovation. Doing something in a different way that may be completely analog, or creating, type from scratch or whatever, is innovation. So to Jeff's point, that's a really good thing, because I think it does get hijacked by technology, because it's like all the tech platforms outspend in their media of telling you what innovation is. Whereas I think innovation could come from anywhere.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it the other week. I think in the last few years, certainly, innovation has to fit in a box. So innovation is defined by the platforms. So generally a media spend, or what you can do within that box, which is best practice, and don't break it, and that's hacking it, and we'll shut that down straight away as soon as you try and do that, which was always the fun Wild West of digital I used to love. So yeah, innovation gets shut down to the point of it's the way you make it that fits in the box. So how do we make this video? How do we make this piece of content? How do we generate this image? Is the innovation, which inevitably becomes a conversation about whether we're going to use AI or we're going to use UGC or creators. So that becomes innovation, the definition of innovation. It's almost been reduced to quite a small, narrow box of what you're allowed to do, certainly creative, which I've found quite frustrating over recent years, because it's like that constant thing. Oh, we're going to have to send people to another platform, or we're going to have to build something and create advertising to send them there. What can we do as a media first, or what can we do in a box that exists? And it's pretty limited. It's not like the good old days where you could break things and hack things, and it was okay to do that, and it was encouraged. Those days seem a bit more restricted as the industry's become more professional and more measured and more systems in place.
But that sounds like not like that sounds like you're
I've had a bad day.
Harking back to yesteryear. How can you sort of practically bring in what you're sort of advocating for into a meeting with both an agency or a brand? Like what you just said about how AI is becoming the sort of innovation tick box. How do you sort of rally or challenge that view within a business practically without harking back to yesteryear?
I always do that because I'm old. I think, yeah, it's not negative. It's negative in that sense, but I think going back to, I think the point was made earlier, there is so much value in doing something that then creates a piece of content that's talked about and shared, etc. So the output, the end, might be quite restricted, e.g. it's a video, it's an image, it's a piece of copy, it's an idea that can be spread really easily through channels. But the thing you do could be really innovative. It could be a real-life stunt. It could be a piece of digital innovation. It could be just something really cool. One of the debates that I always had where you see sometimes a brand, I think of the example where I think it's Hyundai did something on Grand Theft Auto where they made the uncrashable car. I remember someone at work saying, "Oh, but how many people are going to install that and play on it?" I was like, "It doesn't matter. We're talking about it. It's a story. The story is the bit that counts. It doesn't really matter how many people did it. The fact the story they did it is the interesting bit." So yes, the thing you do that then becomes not particularly innovative in execution, maybe, I think that's still a ripe area of doing things that get talked about, that's disruptive, that's interesting. That's where I find there's still hope, and not to be all neggy about.
That like talkability aspect, and if we're looking really into our industry, do you then feel like those pieces are needed, even if they're not maybe driving brand awareness, but for the industry and for your creative teams and themselves to be pushing the boundaries and coming back from a meeting saying, "I saw this piece of work, we're talking about it, is this going to push me harder and to think outside the box?"
Yeah, I mean, agencies have built their fame on that mentality. Droga 5, uncommon, right? Which is basically the classic deconstruction theory of like, what we're going to do is do this big idea and we're going to deconstruct it so that it has a press moment and we're going to have this moment of content. And it's like PR and tactics baked into the idea. So it's super clever. And I think you do need those moments because being a creative is, can I swear?
Oh yeah,
okay.
We're in a pub at like 8
yeah,
PM,
true.
so
And a Dutch pub.
Anything goes.
Yeah. Being creative is fucking hard, right? Coming up with good ideas and trying to do something new. So I think it's self-serving to sort of, and it's okay to be self-serving to go, I want to claim a bit of fame. I want to claim a bit of a social moment in a way. So that's all right. Because also, today's marketing is as much about having that social moment as well as building out the equity of the brand, right? So you have to think about that as a not just an idea, but like a platform for getting reach and engagement. So I think that's okay to build it. I think when it's sort of done out of sort of just fakeness, it's shit. But when it's done for a real reason to sort of be part of the campaign or part of the brand's reach, that's great. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, that's those little moments are moments where you go, it's okay to work till 12 o'clock at night and do these really shit ideas, but actually get that one out that you're just really proud of that people talk about. So I do think, it's a little proud moment that we should celebrate,
Yeah, as you're saying, like that is the dopamine hit that creatives got in the industry for the first time, first place to do, is to do stuff that's innovative, interesting, creative, has talkability, and I'll be cynical again. The industry has fed on that energy for free. Yeah. Weekend work, late nights, because it's interesting, it's cool, it's doing something impactful that maybe someone in the real world sees and talks about. when that stuff gets squeezed a bit, suddenly the incentive to do those extra hours or put that extra effort in or do something completely new and bonkers and risk your job a little bit because no one's done it before, that becomes quite a hard one to convince the team to get out of bed and do that. When, have you done the timesheet? Is that in scope? Etc.
Yeah.
Knowing laughs in the room.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting topic. I feel like that thing of, and Alex touched on it as well, and I love the example of making quilts, which is actually weirdly the second time I've heard a company talk about making quilts as their sort of creative playtime, which is a trend in itself. How do you guys carve out spaces in both? Obviously, you're working directly with sort of C-suite, so it might be a bit different for you, but Jeff, like in your teams, how are you carving out space for them to have a play, have an experiment, get burnt out by a tool, try this thing, and then at the end of the day, it's a waste of everybody's time and resource, but did we learn something?
Yeah, when we have a thing called Thing Makers, which is essentially R&D for everyone. Perfect timing, I'm doing my goals for this year today. And one of them is that for everyone, not just certain people in the creative or design team, like have this for everyone in a creative space. Yes, the small print will be, let's make sure it has value and it's something that we could upsell or cross-sell or whatever, or make work more efficiently for clients. But that becomes like, it's part of the process. Like it's structured thing, and you built it in. And also, the other part of my goals are things like sell more next-gen creativity, sell more integrated work that's marketing technology. And that's going to take an effort because it's not going to happen by its own. So structurally, yes, some of those things will fuel that. But equally, the softer side of that is the one you sort of have to keep on, which is like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to come up with a bonkers idea and it might not work. And bean counters, don't be too strict about that. And I think I would love more people to come up with that sort of, and what if we did this thing at the end? That's sort of almost like my extra goal for this year is just to get the team doing that a bit more. I'd love a bit more rejection of stuff like that. At least we've asked, and no one can say we didn't push it. Because I'd hate to come away from this year thinking, oh shit, we stepped back and we gave them what the client wanted, but we didn't get a rejection from them because it was too bonkers. At the very least, it made them laugh and said maybe next year. That's valuable, right?
And then Wayne, I'm just thinking for you, because obviously you're working, I guess, kind of slightly more in a consultancy role right now. So how much do you get time to just use your brain on its own accord?
Yeah, I've sort of have a fruit salad business model, and it's
not blackjack.
Not blackjack, no. So yes, I work with C-suites, but I also work with collaboration partners, in-house teams. So brands get me to come in and help them sort of jam with them, and other agencies and stuff, and freelancers. So I sort of see lots of different things in different ways. I think it's about sort of mindset. For example, I'm not going to tell you who, but I worked with a really big brand in the automotive industry in December, right? And with their in-house team, and it's a big in-house team, but just getting them out of the studio and actually on the factory floor and doing stuff and jamming with people and bringing engineers in and stuff like that, and bringing them into zones where their creativity could be sort of pushed and they weren't in there, I'm looking at a screen, I'm going to come up with ideas mentality. And actually, I think the interaction really helped with the development of the creative work, right? Because they were trying to do comms at the end of the day. And I think, but that's a classic, that's an old BBH trick, right? From go to the factory floor and come up with the idea rather than try and do it in the agency. So I think I think getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your usual sort of mundane sort of routine, and actually just getting in a new environment starts to create new conversations and different ways that teams come together. And I'm lucky because, AKQA had a team of 100 creatives, right? So big team. And I never think you can not everybody fits in the same ways of working. So you've got to create a safe environment where people are allowed to be themselves. And then real innovation floats to the surface because there's no wrong answer. So I think that's really important as well.
I love that, and I love that example. Just to dig on that a little bit more, how willing would the client to go on that journey with you and to take time like that?
So some of them, I'd say the brand manager was like, this is awesome. I would say the head of product was like, oh my God. And I think once we sort of demonstrated the value to the business and the output as well, I think, now I think they're in a muscle memory that they can go, we need to do this again and again and again. And it's not new. Yeah. It's been going for a lot, that sort of mentality has been going for a long time. It's just some companies don't do it. So it was hard at the start, but I think if you don't ask, you don't get.
I always love it when pitches, they take you, like I remember pitching for McCain chips, and they take you to the factory as the first thing for the brief. And this is amazing.
Yeah.
Except when you see how hula hoops are made. That is bleak.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that.
I must say, before things didn't go well with Greg, what I used to love Inside the Factory. It's my favourite show. How baked beans get made. They get cooked inside the tin, if anyone hasn't seen that episode.
Hula hoops are made from the eyes of potatoes in a wheelbarrow.
It doesn't have to be go to the factory. It's like get away from your laptops and screens, throw a frisbee, go to the pub, walk around, whatever. So, and I think we're too, I don't know what the posh word is, but where your presence, is dictated, basically, presencist or whatever. Yeah. I think there's too much. Innovation and creativity should be measured on the output, not how you get there.
Well, I did want to bring it back to sort of measurement and how you sort of prove the value back to the business. How do you guys do that? Maybe from the Dept example, like how do you prove that the investment in an innovation or a new approach delivered on what it needed to do beyond sort of a vanity?
Well, I guess there's obviously the business results or whatever results the KPIs the client's looking for, which is the ultimate goal. I think like for some of those thing makers things I mentioned earlier, there's been some initiatives we've taken from that and applied it to a client brief. So internally evangelizing that. Like all this thing for photogrammetry where we're taking 3D imagery from existing products in the real world with just a load of iPhones. We've used that for a Black Friday eBay out of home thing. And tell everyone that story internally just to make sure they go, oh, how do you come up with that? R&D. Okay, noted. And I think, so there is a sort of half measure of just banging the drum of this is how we got here. But for clients, I think, obviously they care about the final result. Did it hit the KPIs? Did it sell stuff, whatever? What a gold dust to clients that want talkability or industry talkability, like they did something innovative in AI or a cool piece of tech. That's the bit where you're like, yes, we can talk about the thing we did. The thing we did is part of the idea. That's valuable for you as a client. Therefore, it's going to be really valuable for us as an agency. They are the gold standard opportunities. And they're not as common as you'd like, Frustratingly, so many things, we do something for one client and they're like, can't talk about it now. Shh, let's keep this, between us. Do not sell it to anyone else. That's frustrating. But I think that's the thing, is the measurability is innovation plus that is difficult.
Yeah, I'd also say there's hard metrics, soft metrics. So hard metrics is 100%, what's the business growth, what's the return, blah, 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 right? Okay. But then I think I think what we forget as agencies and practitioners is that the culture of a brand or a business is really important. So how do the employees of that brand, how does your clients feel about it? How's your team feel about it? Do they feel good? Because like one of the biggest issues for clients in the industry, marketing or in-house teams, is like people leaving, people swapping jobs, being happy at work. And actually, I think like part of the making the culture better and that sentiment shift is really important. I mean, I found it like I was lucky enough to rebrand Lloyd's and turn the horse's head, and which was really hard,
Important
right?
work.
Yeah, it's a little one. Yeah, and it was like 200.
Turn its head as like it. Oh, hello.
No, it's over 250 years it was looking backwards, and then we changed the horse's head to look forwards, to symbolise it as a progressive, forward-moving bank, right? Rather than looking backwards, which was really hard to do from a logo point of view. But what was really important was built around that was a whole culture of like, there's a whole new philosophy about being forward thinking, about being progressive, finger on the pulse as a business organisation. And that all the people within Lloyd's Bank loved it. And they're all happy, with the work and what they contributed as much as what the new branding looks like.
Yeah, and I will say, I remember interviewing the Lloyd's CMO after the rebrand, and he was wearing a Lloyd's Bank green T-shirt with the horse, and I thought, wow, that's taking brand love a bit too far. Yeah. Well, there's a couple of agency people who I've now shamed because they've also got branding on their T-shirt. Shout out to these guys. Just on that, that's a very interesting point to make, especially in this sort of time when I know a lot of like the employee-led social is such a huge trend. So for like employees of the brand to be pushing the fact that they work at the brand on their social, and that's its own like driver in itself, is really interesting to try and indoctrinate them into the brand cult.
Yeah, got to make it a cult.
Yeah.
We have. I found it amazing when we joined Dept, because we were an M&A acquisition. Deptapparel.com is a fashion brand ran by our agency, and people in the agency buy the stuff and spend their own money on hoodies, sweatshirts. Clients love it. It's all made in Portugal. Very, eco, 100% cotton, etc. Alicia Keys and her boyfriend were wearing some of it in a shoot on Instagram. We're like, what the fuck is going on here? It is an agency with stuff on. But yeah, that becomes like almost like a thing that someone in the design team started because they were bored, had nothing to do. So like, I'm going to start designing some Dept clothes, and then became a complete brand. And every month there's a drop, whether it's a hoodie or socks. I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? And yeah, people are spending money on it. And it's like the tote bags is client catnip. They absolutely love it. But yeah, that's really effective. Like, it's not particularly innovation in a tech sense, but it's a massive innovation for culture and people feeling they're part of something. I've always found that fascinating.
Can I ask, is there anything at Dept specifically that keeps you in that mindset, in that cultural mindset, that every day you come in and you're like, okay, I'm going to advocate for Dept. I'm going to get my Dept tote bag.
My mortgage.
Yeah, beyond the mortgage.
I live in that, yeah.
What do you need from?
No, I mean, I've always been I've always loved innovation. It's always been something that's got me out of bed in the morning. I don't really like advertising. I don't like. Oh, is our PR team still here? No, as in like, I don't get excited by a TV ad or it's just like, yeah, okay, fine. You had a lot of money. You paid a very expensive director to make it. Great. I always like something. But was it written by AI? Was it made? And it was scripted by a child or something interesting about it.
You love the craft rather than the output, almost.
Yeah, I love the way it got there. There's some narrative around it. Maybe because I don't like standing in front of a client going, "Here's a script." Da-da. There's nothing behind it, right? So Dept by its very nature is innovation at the core. So I do love that that's there pushing. There isn't an old traditional creative narrative. There isn't. So I that keeps me there and keeps me engaged and excited, even though my persona sounds negative. But yeah, the team I've hired aren't advertising creatives. They're not traditional creative. They're comedians or architects and various extra things. So that's always interesting, and we're making it up as we go along, and that to me is innovation.
I love that. And Wayne, how about you? What keeps you beyond the mortgage?
Beyond the mortgage, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I probably wouldn't get another job anyway, doing something else. But I don't know. I just love the craft. For me, as a designer, I think it's about the craft, and it's about trying to sort of always. I always believe you're only as good as your last job. Right, insecure creative, but and I always just trying to finesse and push forward, basically. So, really good question. I don't know. I don't want to think about it because I think that I'd have to self-analyze myself too much, and that's too scary.
Yeah, let's save the therapy for after this session. Yeah. I think it also speaks quite nicely to Jeff's point earlier about how you keep your teams growing. That thing of each time you want to go better, and that talkability, and for the industry to all be talking about this one campaign and you want to top it, that sort of like competitiveness almost is keeping the innovation quite strong.
Yeah, I mean, creators are naturally competitive. You just got to balance that with, why the fuck didn't they buy my viral film? Because they wanted a banner and they had £5 to make it. And I think that's the constant thing of balancing that energy. Then the next day they've got to be doing something that just keeps the lights on and ticks a box. So yeah, that's always hard to keep that momentum up and down. That's why, I don't know, you love a pitch?
Yeah, I love.
I mean, it's weird. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You kind of go, this is awful. I'm being abused here, but
yeah.
I'm showing off and making a silly thing, and the clients can't judge us because it's a pitch, and there's no budget or etc. So yes, we're suckers to it, but and that keeps us going. I hate when no one explicitly says tone it down, because that sort of ruined all the fun, the reason we got in the first place.
Yeah. I don't think you can have innovation without a bit of conflict, positive conflict, not negative. So I think you need to create, for me, I used to say sort of tough on the work, kind on the people, because I think kindness is a really important trait. And that's about sort of giving space for people to make mistakes. But you're being kind by saying, that's really shit what you've done there because of X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, they're living in a false world, right? So you've got to be tough on the work, And I think you need, if everybody in the team agrees that this is great, then something's wrong. You need a bit of friction, positive friction, to make good work happen. I think so. And that creates open honesty. And again, I think honesty is really, really important, because if you can't be honest with people, then what's the point, basically?
I feel like I was going to wrap for questions a second, but just on that honesty point, and maybe again I'm being a bit controversial here, but how much do you feel like you get that honesty that you're asking for that you might give to a team member from a client?
Not enough. Sometimes you got to drag it out of them. I mean, that's the whole purpose of sort of stakeholder interviews and interviewing people and workshops and stuff, is to go, how do you get the information out of people that they don't want to tell you about, basically, and find ninja tactics to bring it out. Because nobody wants to be forthcoming, but you have to get to that bone in the meat to really understand what the problem is.
It's incredibly valuable when you do get it.
Yeah.
Because when you play it back, your staff said this.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's like, oh, we're going to buy this because it's true and we said it. So it's not, Yeah.
Well, as a journalist, I might need some of those tactics to get the truth out of people. But you guys have been very honest, so great.
Or take a client out and get them drunk.
Yeah, which is what I have done this evening. Well, I was going to open up to questions or a therapy session if anyone's got anything that they need to share. It's a safe space. You can offload whether you're Yeah, I'm going to pass the mic over to you first.
Thank you, that was brilliant. You mentioned getting out from the desk, which I think is a topic which doesn't get talked about enough, which is super important. But you've also mentioned in the same kind of panel the word timesheets and the word bean counters. I feel like we're in this, I know the last panel was very much around AI, and I feel like there's this kind of very limited window where we could advocate for the efficiency, the time that we free up from maybe adopting some AI, actually reinvesting that in being able to not just see getting out from the desk as a utopia and actually do it. Do you have any advice on what a good elevator pitch or business case would be to get the bean counters or the overlords to agree to it?
Excellent question.
All I'd say is, from bitter experience, is the cost cutting or the efficiency of AI is not put back into the team to allow them to have space. It is given as a cost reduction for procurement teams in large organisations who are squeezing for more with less. So it's we're all barking up the wrong tree slightly there. I mean, it's very basic advice, but my always thing is ask for forgiveness. I'll just take the team out. You know, I've had to tell people off for telling. What do you mean you've told the team that you're offline this afternoon? Just go offline and just dip in occasionally. Do not tell anyone you're out, and and definitely don't tell them I told you could do that. So lie. There's no the bean counters as I lovingly call them. They look, their job is really important, but they're also, creativity has no number above it. It is just a service amongst every other thing. So they don't see it in a way there's value for the softer things. And I constantly have to have a battle of why should creative have any special extra things than the account team do or the finance team? It's not fair. Everyone has to have equal, perks or time off. So I'd rather hide it, no one talk about it, and we'll play some games with the expenses. Again, good advice.
Wayne, you want to dip in, or is
I don't know. I like that. I'm coming to work with Jeff. Just hang out and hide it in the expenses. I mean, I don't know. I think you can. I also think you shouldn't be like, hey, we're creative, we're a bubble. It should be about like, bring people in, right? Break down the silos, and it's like, the more you can bring the bean counters to the party, the more they're going to be like, yeah, I saw the value in that, basically. And also, it's a HR thing as well, if you want to be really sneaky.
It's a really good part.
Yeah. It's sort of like, this is about, it is about, because on a serious note, it's about mental health, it's about better working processes, it's about the team getting to know each other. So you're actually breaking down silos to have a better time at work and a better engaged employee, right? And I think that nobody's going to say, no, your team can't sort of be better engaged and have better mental health. Stay there, because that's just really wrong. And I think if you can frame it in a way that says, this isn't just about us having a jolly. This is about us bonding, us being a team, us getting better work out. And once you do something, then the gates open.
Actually, on that point, the bean counters do love it when you say retention is cheaper than net new hires.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, it's ruthless, but it's true.
Amazing. Do I have time for one more? Is anyone else? Any other questions in the audience? Therapy? Yeah, you're quite far away. Do you want to shout?
Sorry. You sort of.
Sorry.
You sort of, it's quite interesting. You talk about innovation, and you talk about sort of bean counters. I think, but also you like there's two sides of it, right? Like in a big agency, in a big studio, you just mentioned like you kind of have to hide the creativity in ways of like sort of how you have that access to that spare time or openness to creativity. And then obviously Wayne, you've just started you've just come from a big agency. So how would you do that now differently, sort of with a sheet? Like if you could just do it all over again, and you can sort of make the space for creatives to do what they need to do, the way they need to do it without being checkers, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I think sometimes agencies hide the creatives too far down, right? And I think for me, I don't know, my model is more like an architect model, where it's about let's work like a practice where you get the creatives and the teams and the people all in the same flat structure working together. And I think that way, and it's really good for young creatives and designers and people like that, because instantly they're put in positions of authority and they're being heard about. And it's about framing that in a way that you go, okay, let's work at this as a team together rather than let's baton pass it down the line. Because I think as soon as you do baton passing down the line, it's becomes inefficient and things get lost between the cracks. So I think for me, it's like, even at scale, I think you can have ways of working that actually work in a much more flat structure, And there are agencies that work, there's studios and agencies that work like that. So I think that sort of shortening the gap between the hierarchies is really important.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys, Wayne, Jeff. It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.